podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're listening from. This is the very first edition in a new series, which we get the opposition preview into the games that are coming up. And of course, we kick off our season on Saturday at home to Watford. So today, joining us, we have very, very fortunate to have three members of the Do Not Scratch Your Eyes podcast. I'll introduce them individually, but thank you coming on, gents. So first of all, welcome, Justin. How you doing, mate?
All good, mate. All good. Good to be here.
Oh, thanks for coming on, mate. Thank you. And we also have Pete. How you doing, Pete?
Fine, thanks. Our great pleasure to be here. Lovely stuff.
Love it, mate. And finally, Carlos. How you doing, mate?
Thank you, mate. Thank you for saving the best till last. I appreciate it. Great to be here.
I think that's just a sign of what's to come, isn't it, gents? So, so we meet again, gents, on Saturday at the Den. It hasn't really been a happy hunting ground for you. I think, we spoke on another show, your show, which we'll certainly put links to, that you haven't won at the Den for, was it since 2015, I believe? Yep, so it's not been a happy hunting ground, and a certain Mr. Bradshaw has certainly liked playing you over the years. But before we talk about Saturday specifically, just love to understand how you feel your pre-season has gone from a results perspective, and just, we'll talk about transfers in a moment, but just from a results perspective, Justin, like what's your view on how pre-season's gone?
Well, thank you for coming to me first. It means I get to tell you how it really is, and then the other two can sort of sugarcoat it. It's been dreadful. It's been really, really bad. Yeah. I think we won 2 games. One was away to Hibernian. The other was Boreham Wood. There's been a couple of draws, I think, and most of the rest of them we lost. And, yeah, it's just been poor. It's been very, very poor results-wise, I think. I didn't go to any of the games. These two went to Hibs. Did you go to any other ones, Carlos? You went to Wickham, didn't you?
Wickham, yeah. Wickham as well, yeah.
You went to Wickham. And we lost that 3-2, didn't we? Was that 3-2, that one?
Yeah, it was 3-2.
Yeah, so, no, it's just been poor. Really, really poor. If Carling did pre-seasons, that's what it would have been. Yeah, because Carling's a terrible lager. So, yeah, no, it's awful. Awful pre-season, in my opinion.
Pete,
That was
Yeah,
not Carling, was it? Okay, fine.
I was agreeing with myself, Peter. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So, look, I think, is it bad just in terms of the results? Because sometimes they don't mean anything, right? But have the performances been matching the poor results you've had, Pete?
The performances have fluctuated. To be honest with you, we are also in a stage of the transfer window where we still need to bring an awful lot in. So we've been reliant on a number of games, including the youngsters. And, ironically, the second half away at Hibernian, which Carl and I went and visited, was probably the best 45 minutes of football we've seen with the youngest team that we had out at the time. So some of the performances and some of the elements have been really good. However, Tom Cleverley was last year's under-18 manager. So when he's brought these guys in, they kind of know exactly what he wants from them. Whereas actually when we're seeing the first team as play thus far, it's still kind of on a learning journey, and you can still see that there are still, massive gaps, and we just are not scoring enough. We don't have, kind of forwards, and I appreciate everybody in the Championship is saying exactly the same thing, but we are very, very much in the same boat, even though we do have somebody who scores goals and does nothing else, and I mean literally nothing else. It is. We're very, very undercooked in terms of the numbers that we need. And only this week, Tom Cleverley has come out and said we need to bring in and we need to strengthen the defence, the midfield, and the attack. And I mean, bearing in mind, most of us were wondering whether or not we'd strengthen the goalkeeping position. It kind of gives you a pretty good idea about where we are. We're not where we want to be, and I think we are probably looking at the lower half of the table. And I would suggest we're probably looking at the lower half of the table.
Wow. So there's a lot of optimism I'm sensing ahead of the season. But just touching on players as well, there's quite a few names that are still on the books with you that I had assumed would have moved on by now. Aspria being the main one. What's the situation with him and some of the other lads that ultimately are worth quite a few, quite a bit of money, but still sort of seem to be on the books? Carlos, like, what's your view on where they will be come the end of the season? So I guess I'm trying to gauge, you already need to strengthen, but are you going to lose players as well as needing to fill those gaps?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the football area is the financial problems that Watford currently have. We've got an owner that's very disinterested in the club, so much so that he's spent most of pre-season at his other football club, or his father's football club, Udinese, who have spent, I think today was about 22 million on player transfers. We've spent a couple of $100,000. So that kind of shows where he is. And these players, like you've just mentioned, Asprilla, Wesley, who, if he hadn't been injured horrendously at the Wycombe game, probably would have gone out as well. But Asprilla, for me, will not be a Watford player this season. There's a couple of sides he's linked to. Is it Rennes in France?
It's at Stade Rennes in France. Porto are also interested, and he's whilst he's on the books, he's not been with us for pre-season at all. There is no way he's going to be there. By all accounts, he hasn't even got a training pod at the training ground. So
so he won't be there. But Leicester City are another side looking at him as well. But 25 million. But the big question, I guess, from Watford supporters is what's happening to that money. Where's the investment? When we're talking about transfers and things like that, because there just doesn't seem to be any. It seems that we're getting ready for a really big change at the club over the next couple of years, but we'll see.
And sticking with you, Carlos, is Tom Cleverley the right man to oversee that change?
Yeah, I like Tom. I think he, in terms of his playing career, what the sort of player he was for Watford, I can't fault him really. Time will tell, of course, what sort of manager he's going to be. But Watford had a big thing, and I don't always want to bring him up when we talk about them up the road from us, our nearest and dearest. But Watford wanted a young manager, somebody that they could kind of, progress. And we had Rob Edwards, who obviously went off to them lot up the road. And Tom is probably that again. He's a second sort of chance with that. He's, as Pete said, he's been in the under-18s. The players that he's brought through in the under-18s know him. They know how he trains. We're hoping that from a loan point of view, he's able to help us out in terms of trying to bring some Premier League talent in that isn't going to play at their clubs next season. So for me, to answer the question, I've got no problem with Tom. I think he's the right man for the job.
And I think everybody's like that. But the problem is always, you can be the greatest carpenter in the world. If somebody gives you a Fisher-Price hammer, you can't do the job. And that's the problem. He's got to be supported. And that's the biggest thing. I don't think any brickbats are going to be thrown at Tom, other than presumably from the from the top of the table, from the top of the organisation, because he just seems to just stick or twist. No, keep twisting, keep changing.
Yeah, from an outsider looking in, it does look like you change your manager pretty often. The other thing you touched on there, Carlos, as well, is the fact that, you've already sold Kone, right? And you got a pretty healthy fee for him. And when I looked at your incomings, you signed Jonathan Bond on a free. You've got a couple of players on loan, including a left back, I think, from Troyes in France. You've signed a young striker from Celtic B team, although I think he's quite highly rated. And then, of course, you brought back a Sissoko. You brought him back as well. Like, Pete, how would you gauge your, money, what you spent aside? Like, how would you gauge your transfer activity so far?
Sissoko is tainted because he was with us previously for a season. He's the main reason why Justin is currently trying to cover his eyes, I think. We are associated to a certain agent, a gentleman called Moji Bayat, who is, I would suggest, less than reputable, and the legal authorities in Belgium would tend to agree, and indeed northern France. He's under investigation as part of Operation Zero, which is to cover match fixing, fraud, money laundering, you name it. And yet he seems to be a fixed position at Watford. We were fortunate enough to be able to get not interview, but basically we arranged a fan forum, and I was sat there, fortunately, putting the questions to Gino largely, and we asked Mogi Bayat, why is he attached to everything? And it was, no, he's just another He's just another agent. He was just another agent who was sat between Scott Duxbury, our chairman and CEO, and our owner at the Den last year when we played you guys. He is not just owner. He seems to be basically the de facto technical director. Anything goes through him. Tom turned around and said, when I came back to the club, the one person I really wanted was Musa Sissoko. Yeah, he was the best of a bad bunch when he was here, but that's really damning with faint praise. And I doubt very much if Tom Cleverley is being really, really genuine there, because if anybody gives you, turns around and says, the really, really what I want is a 35-year-old who just happens to be, one of the players of Moji Bayat, it's very suspicious. Rocco Vata looks a lot of fun. Yes, he came in from Celtic B, who play in the Lowlands League, which is the fifth tier of Scottish football. But he looks very, very good. He's got an ability to kind of beat a player, but whereas you would think of him as a kind of he's going to do something and produce a cross, he doesn't. He goes to guns. He really does go to guns. So we're playing a kind of a 3-4-2-1 kind of thing, and he plays in that second row of attack. And what he tends to do is kind of shift the ball and then get his shot away. Jonathan Bond, some people have had it up in arms. He's a reserve team goalkeeper, providing he's British and doesn't knock into the non-homegrown quota that we've got. Fine. We've desperately needed a left back, and we've gone and bought in Yasser. Lacroix, or whatever his name is, Larouci, from Troyes. Now, Troyes are famous because they are now in Ligue 2. They would be in Ligue 3. It's the only reason they're there is because Bordeaux have gone out of service. So, no, not really doing an awful lot. Was at Liverpool, was not particularly well regarded at Sheffield United. Looks very good going forward, not so much going backwards. So, hopefully we'll kind of push things going forward and utilise him. But again, he's not played any friendly at all. He's not done anything like that. Today, we've brought in a new coach who was formerly one of the assistant managers under Jokanovic back in 2016. And you go, and it was like, right, because he's going to give us lots of tactics. And you go, brilliant. Okay, if you're going to bring in a coach, why bring him in 4 days before the start of the season? Really? It's ridiculous. Either you've had something missing in the coaching setup, or somebody has gone, hold on, I'm being sold a pup here and I'm going to move away potentially. I don't know. But it seems very, very odd, the goings on. So, no, in terms of all the recruitment that's come in, nothing wrong against them individually. But what we absolutely need more than anything, we needed a left back, or left wing back. We've got one of those now in Larouci, and we'll see how he gets on. But bearing in mind, he's missed the entirety of pre-season. And we desperately need somebody who can play the forward role and at least hit the target, because we've got Mileta Rajovic, who scored us 11 goals last season, but never at all times looked like a competition winner. And we've got a guy called Vakun Bio, who again was to illustrate it. We signed 18 months ago. He was sold to Charleroi, who again Moji Bayat. His brother is the managing director of Charleroi. His uncle owns Charleroi. He got sold to them on the 1st of July for 1.3 million. And on the 2nd of July, we bought him for 5.3. So, so when we were talking to them, I did say, well, what we want is the development coach at Charleroi, because look at the value he stuck into him in under 24 hours. Amazing, amazing stuff. And who would realise that we have a financial deficit? Go figure.
Honestly, like listening to some of that stuff, which I'll be honest is new news to me, so I'm sure it'll be news to a lot of Millwall fans. It does make you appreciate just how overall, and yes, there are definitely fans, myself included, that are not entirely happy with the transfer business we've done, but just how well run we are. And I think at times we don't. Maybe that's a bit unfair. I think certain sections of Millwall fans don't realise just how well run we are. And yes, we never spend millions and millions of pounds, but we don't have situations like this where we're being dictated to by, agents and managers of other clubs and things. It blows my mind. It really does. So I hope for your sakes, gents, that you get a resolution to that quicker rather than later.
Well, as we said when you were with us, obviously you guys, and hearts go out to you guys. You've had a couple of absolute tragedies over the last couple of seasons, but and you lost a really, obviously not just your recent keeper, but you lost a really good guy who was in charge of the club and has brought some stability. I'm not bothered where we finish. I just want to make sure that we have a stable club, because that's the concern. And if you've got that, anything on top is a bonus. But it would really be nice to be able to see something that felt like it was being done for the betterment of the club, rather than a few individuals inside and outside of the club.
Yeah, and agree. And this season, as you already touched on, we've had two tragic losses in 2 seasons. Obviously, the passing of John Berrison, our chairman, and his son Jimmy has taken over the mantle, and then of course the tragic loss of Matty Sarkic in the summer, which we will have a celebration of his life, I am sure, on Saturday. So any Watford fans listening to this, I'm sure you will be incredibly supportive of that. It's a horrible thing. But the question I'll sort of segue to now is, in and amongst all of the transfers in and out, Justin, I'll come to you for this one. Who do you think is going to be like your one to watch for this season?
I think the one to watch this season will be Georgie Chekfadadze. I think he's a lot of fun. He had a really good Euros for Georgia. I think he's going to be the one that's going to probably be the most fun to watch. So I would certainly go for Georgie Chekfadadze.
Yeah, I do remember seeing him in the Euros and being pretty impressed with him. So I know exactly who. Does he play in the 2 just behind the striker?
He will do. Yeah, he certainly will do. He can play in central midfield. He can play either wing side, but because we're playing this 3-4-2-1 of sorts, how malleable it can be. But he can drift out left and he can deliver those things. But at the moment, it looks like that's Rocco Vata more likely to be there, and we'll see. But Chekfadadze was probably the highlight of the Wickham game last week, scored a great goal. But we hadn't seen much of him because of the World Cup, and he's come in late. But he seems to be good for it. And he's a lot of fun if you get him on the ball. So no, I think he's a good one. Rocco Vata would probably be the other person I would suggest who might be, because he's in the same position. It probably isn't going to be 2 of the forwards, because they'll be in charge of actually trying to pass it to those 2. Oh, crikey, watch.
It's like watching the Chuckle Brothers reborn. Honestly, the front 2 when they're on. It's to you, it's awful.
So maybe that's a good segue to my next question, Carlos, which is, we talked about the need to fill a lot of gaps, but what would you say is your biggest gap at the minute, and what sort of player do you think you would like to see come in that gap?
Yeah, well, probably similar to you guys in terms of somebody who can hold the ball up front and score the odd goal. Just somebody that's got a bit of movement. And I know he's already out and about now, but a Kiefer Moore type player, just somebody that's a bit of a threat. Rajovic, who we've had for this will be his 2nd season now, he's just never really done it. You look at him and you can see the effort in terms of he wants to do things. But I wonder about his technical ability. We sat on a podcast with Troy Deeney, and Troy Deeney rated him, and he said he's going to come good. I could be proven wrong this season. I hope I am, but I don't hold out much hope for Mr. Wright.
He said he knows where to be. He can do the hardest thing, which is scoring double figures in the Championship. The rest can be worked on. But if it has been worked on, it does. Bearing in mind, I decided I was going to watch the whole of the second half against Hibs. I was going to watch him. I got 2 minutes in, and the rage took me, and I kind of started watching the younger kids instead. It was much better. They got us back in, and we won that game 3-2 in the second half, being 2-2 from the first, and he had absolutely nothing to do with it.
So you need a centre forward. We need a centre forward, and we spoke on your show about how the summer transfer business for us started off pretty well. I think we're all very happy as Millwall fans, but then we just never built on that. And with a squad that's paper thin at times, you need to add depth to it. And our first 11's not bad, but I think that we haven't added the chances that we created were so low last season. I said to you off air, we were 22nd in terms of chances created, which just isn't good enough. So we haven't added enough in that area. But I'll come to all of you for this next question. Based on where you sit today, so let's assume, you can assume Asprey is going to go, because you said he's not even been the training ground. So you can assume he's going to go. But where do you think you'll finish? Justin, I'll come to you first, mate.
Position at the end of the season?
Yes.
Oh, God. Well, as you know, you've just been on our one, and I said 23rd. And I honestly think I'm not being overly pessimistic at this stage as I sit here right now to say that. I think we're in trouble. We really are in trouble. There's a real kind of, how do I put it? There's a feeling amongst the fans that this is going to be a massive season for us. A lot of people are talking about prepare for League One. I can't see that there's much interest from the owners in doing anything to prevent that as we speak. We haven't got the money. There's been some sort of share issue thing launched that was supposed to try and raise £17 million, and I think only £3 million has been raised. I honestly think we haven't got the money to splash, and so I think the squad we've got is going to be largely it, unless we get some loans in before the window closes. So I don't want to be all negative and doom and gloom, but I think we're looking at bottom end of the table, frankly.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, I knew you were going to say that because of what we said earlier, but
I'm not going to change my mind.
That's pessimistic. Yeah. But Carlos, are you as pessimistic as that, mate? Where do you have you down?
I think it's going to be a long, hard season for us. I think the big thing for Watford Football Club and its supporters, the sooner that they realise we're not a Premier League side anymore, and that we are now, we were shopping in Marks and Spencers, we're now shopping at Poundland. It's just the way. It's just the way that it is, and we're going to have to rely on loans. That's a big thing for us this season. I think that really, for me, will play a part in where we're going to finish if we're able to bring these players in, or have a plan B to bring somebody in. But yeah, I think bottom half of the table, a 16th, something like that. I don't think we'll go down. I think there's 4 or 5 teams worse off than us this season. We've mentioned them. Plymouth, Blackburn, Oxford. I think they could be in trouble this season as well. But our biggest fear, and Pete touched on it, is that we actually have a club. At the end, I think things are really that bad in terms of the finances at Watford because of the owner and where that is, and that's the biggest concern, not where we finish. And that's as pessimistic as I can be for this season.
Wow. I mean, as I said earlier, I do feel for you because that's just the fault of Millwall not existing is.
Oh no, you do. Do you know what? But the problem is, you feel for us, but there's also going to be a load of football supporters and a load of fans that go, "I told you so. I told you couldn't run a football club like that." And there's going to be that side of it as well. But it's very different in the real world. When you're inside the tent pissing out rather than the other way in, it's that the owner has lost interest. He's lost his way for whatever reason, financially, whatever it is. The stuff that's going on in the background, we don't know yet, but it will all come out at some point. But yeah, it's not good times for Watford, and we should be like this at the beginning of the bloody season. I'm going to Millwall on Saturday. I'm buzzing for that. Of course I am. But long term, we just don't know, and that's not a nice place to be.
No, Pete, we've had a 16th and a 23rd. Where's your head going?
Go on, Pete. Go promotion.
Yeah,
and Europe.
Here is the hope. The hope is, first of all, that Tom Cleverley is very highly regarded in the game. And whilst other people will look at Watford and go, well, maybe we're not going to, we wouldn't trust you, they might trust Tom. They might not trust us to keep Tom for very long, because that's it. So the hope is that his the goodwill to him will get him some X factor loans, if you will, at that sharp end. But let's be honest. If you could get Kiefer Moore, extract his DNA and stick him in a grow bag, we'd all make a fortune selling to because Kiefer Moore would be what almost everybody's wish list is in the Championship. I think, to be honest with you, we went through this question on our Patreon group, and I did say I really struggle to see 3 teams that we are decidedly better than. I'm not saying we're not. I'm not saying they're not worse than, but we've still got that little bit of investment, and we have not invested at all at the moment. And we do have an owner who is our owner is basically the son of the owner at Udinese, Gianpaolo. But if you followed Serie A last year, they stayed up with a last goal in the last 5 minutes. It all came down to a kind of crunch. Ironically scored by Keenan Davis, who was formerly with us on loan.
Oh yeah,
It
got
got
for you.
Oh yeah, Justin, what
No,
do you think?
okay.
Yeah,
terrible,
no.
absolutely terrible.
I'd have taken him.
Please do.
Yeah, we differ with this. I think there is a good player in there if he can be fit. He was never fit with us because we never got him in pre-season to be able to get him through there. And here we are 3 days before it. And what's he done? He's been out in Udinese. They've been buying additional players, and then we'll kind of have things kind of thrown at us piecemeal. So I hope that we would get enough to be able to kind of push out. The other hope is that, and I think this extends to you guys as well, nobody quite knows what everybody is going to be in the Championship yet, and nobody,
an open league, isn't it?
Nobody to date has spent more than £5 million. So okay, Middlesbrough I think are going to bust through that because one of the players we were interested in was Micah Hamilton from Man City on loan. But I think what we're seeing within the Premier League's relationship with the Championship now is that because of FFP or PSR or whatever the FA want to bloody call it these days, nowadays what the Premier League teams are doing is saying, no, we're not going to loan you our better talent. You can buy them for, like Jayden Philogene at Hull last year, you can buy him for 9 million. We'll buy him back in a year for 15 million if he's any good. We also want a 25% sell-on clause, and then we'll kind of put him to you. So in that particular instance, he pulled up trees for periods at Hull, and then they bought him back with the 25% sell-on fee, bringing it down to about 11 million. So basically, they paid 3 million out, less his wages, to see whether or not he developed all right. He did well, so they bought him back, and if he does well enough, they'll flog him on somewhere else, presumably, or utilise him in the team. What that means to teams like Watford and maybe Millwall, I don't know what your situation is, but there was no way that we were going to get Micah Hamilton because there's no way we can put 6 or 7 or 8 million down. We are absolute at brass farthings because the money is all owed back to the owner, who's not putting anything more in. It's like a mini version of the Glazers thing in terms of leveraging it all against the club, which is unfortunate. So we should be hopefully clearing all of our external debt, but we've got an owner who valued for this share issue that was talking about there. They put up 10% of the club for sale for £17.5 million. So they valued Watford at £175 million, which is like, are you crazy? Not absolute nonsense. Yeah, so what's now happening? What's now happening, which a lot of the naysayers are seeing, is we're seeing these, the last elements of these good players being sold, and it'll bring the asset value of the club down, and hopefully it'll mean that either they can attract an investor or somebody else from or an outright buyer. Ideally, I think, because we feel like, because of what happened with Udinese last year, it looks like the focus is on making sure the blood is returning to protect the vital organs in northeastern Italy at the moment, and we are very, very much secondary to everything until they do that. But hey, there's always hope. And anyway, it's the Championship. It's bonkers and it's fun. So what the hell? We'll take it.
Yeah, Pete, I agree. My view of the Championship is every single season we say it's stronger. This year we say it's stronger. I think this is the first year in a few years where I wouldn't say it's any weaker. I wouldn't say it's stronger. I think it's kind of a level playing field. I think the 3 teams that went up are significantly better, in my opinion, than the ones that have come down. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I think other than 3 or 4 that we've spoken about on your show, I think it could be anyone. I really do. I don't think there's many teams that stand out. So that's what makes the Championship, and that's what makes everything, exciting. I want to ask you what you think of Millwall's transfer business, where you think we'll finish from an outsider's perspective. I'd say I speak on behalf of the majority of Millwall fans, as I alluded to earlier, that we were pretty happy when the ball started rolling on the transfer side with signing League 2 top goal scorer, the best goalkeeper in League 1, Japhet Tanganga, who was a revelation for us towards the back end of last season. But then that was it. And as we sit here today, recording on Tuesday evening, who knows, by the time this video goes out, we could have signed someone else. But at the moment, we haven't done enough business. And that's why at the moment I have us bottom 8, which may or may not go down well with the Millwall listeners, but I'm just being honest where I see us at the moment. So would love to get your views. Where do you see Millwall finishing? Carlos, like how, from an outsider looking in, What do you make of our summer and where you see us finishing?
I think you've had a really tough summer off the pitch. Now, and I don't want to use that as a negative or a positive, but I think there's an argument that something like that over the last 2 seasons, what the club's been through, that could galvanise the players, that could bring them together. It could also go the other way. But in terms of where Millwall are, they kind of they always seem just to miss out, whether it be playoffs or anything like that. And then if they're not missing out, then they are down there. So it's a really interesting one for Millwall this season. And I think your home form is key, as it has been. I think the Den's a tough place to go. And if you can keep that strong, to be fair, I fancy you as a bit of a mid-table side. Maybe one to watch, but like you say, you probably need to add 2 or 3 players to really be able to push on for any further than that. But I'll give you mid-table.
I would take that. Justin, what's your view?
I'm going to go a little bit quicker than that. I'm just going to say you're going to end up higher than us this season.
So if we're bottom,
we could still go down.
Yeah.
Potentially, yes. Yeah. No. I think you'll end up higher in the table than us. That's it.
Okay.
You can see why Justin is head of optimism at Do Not Scratch Your Eyes, can't you?
Yeah. He's very good at it.
I think I agree. I thought Macaulay Langstaff was one of the players that we were looking at, and when he went to you guys, a fair few people whose opinion I respect were spitting chips. And he wasn't just top scorer in League Two; he was also in the Vanarama the season before, which actually is, in some ways, it's stronger than League Two. To be quite frank, there's just a bottleneck going between them. So yeah, I think he would be. I think he'll score goals, full stop, for you, and I think he'll do very well. Your issue is about who's gonna load the gun for him to fire it. I think I can never get is it Zane or Zian Fleming?
Zian Fleming, yeah.
Fleming. I like the look of a lot. He's the player who Rocco Vata sort of reminds me a little bit of, but he goes to guns more than kind of threaded passes through for somebody else and running and moving. So it's kind of it'll be interesting. The question is where your threat from wide areas comes. In terms of that, I thought the Tanganga I think is an exceptional permanent acquisition. I mean, you only have to go back 2-3 years, and he was talking about an AC Milan move. He was pulling up trees in the Spurs,
pushing an England call up at one point, wasn't he?
Yeah. But as we know, I mean, Watford have passed masters at taking people who've been battered and bruised at Arsenal or Tottenham and putting an arm around them, and suddenly them playing really, really well. See Etienne Capoue for details. And I think he could be one of those who kind of goes to a club where he's appreciated for what he does do, rather than just feeling like he's in the chorus line on occasions. He's too good really to be a backup. And no, so I think that what you have done is good. I think it's what you haven't done that needs addressing, as with all of us, except that the stuff that we've done is a little bit more iffy than what you've managed to date. So we will see.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think a couple of players from our side to watch would be, I mean, you've named a few of them there, but I think Tanganga, there's no way the club didn't say to him, look, come here, have a good season or two, and you'll be back in the Premier League or back in Italy. So that would have been part of the dream. So that works in both of our favours. Zian Fleming had a fantastic debut season, but fell off a little bit last year. If we can get him fit and firing, that'll be fantastic. We have a young lad called Romain Esse, who I do believe will start on Saturday, and
yes.
he's excellent. He just needs to add a little bit of final product to his game, but this could be his breakthrough season.
Has he come through the youth ranks, hasn't he? Is that where he's come from?
Yeah, he's one of our own, so to speak.
Yeah, he's been drooled over by a number of people for a couple of years on things like Y Scout and kind of looking at the young players. Yeah. So yeah, no, he should be interesting to see him.
So he's good. And then the other one I would say watch out for this season is Casper De Noor. So I believe he's our record signing. The club keep everything undisclosed, but I believe he's our record signing. He's a Belgian central midfielder. He was in and out of the team last year due to injury, and also he's not a typical Millwall Neil Harris battler in the centre of the park, but he's his passing range, his vision is fantastic. So if we can build the midfield around him and we're not backs to the wall chasing, trying to chase our tails and being relegated, he could be vital for us this season. So that would be interesting. So a couple of players for you to watch out. But we're coming to the end of the show, and I'm going to now... I wanted to ask, ultimately, what you think the score will be on Saturday. And obviously, we've been on your show, and we did this. And there's a segment as part of that show that you do where, for those, I really encourage Millwall fans to listen to this, by the way. But essentially, you allow for... Obviously, you predict certain scores, but then you allow for other predictions, let's say, some inventive ones. And rather than taking yours predictions, I thought I would actually go to someone that probably got a bit more knowledge about the score on Saturday.
More informed, detailed, definitely.
So I'm going to play a video, and we'll see how this goes. This is the score prediction for Saturday.
The first day of a new season. It's like Christmas Day when you're a kid. Fire in your belly, the excitement running through your veins. We can only dream of playing good, attractive football, getting promoted, winning the cup. This is our year! Oh, am I kidding? We're Gino's Watford.
Tough game to start with. Millwall away. Here's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to show you a card, and you're going to tell me what the score's going to be. You ready? Okay, representing Millwall, because they're at home. This is famous Millwall fan. Greg. Can I have a go, Wallace? Now, what you got to do is you got to tell me how many goals Millwall are going to score. 3? Okay, so we decided that Millwall are going to get 3. Representing Watford, we have the legend that is Hammer Bwatsa. Okay, how many Watford are going to score, mate? Go on. How many? Is that a nil? So you have decided that we are having an opening day defeat at Millwall, and it's going to be Millwall 3, Watford 0.
And it is damp and sticky.
My favourite part of that is the damp and sticky.
So, obviously, a more informed opinion than any of yours suggests that we're going to win the game 3-0, which I think we would all take. That's absolutely cracking, by the way. I love that. I'm going to have to copy that at some stage. I need to get my cat to do it. I don't have a dog.
Yeah, get a cat involved, yeah.
Well, in fairness, the dog is a prima donna at the best of times. He's changed the way he makes predictions has varied from many ways. He started off taking scores out of cups, and it wasn't working very well. So he turned the cups the other way around, and we actually had kind of listeners going around. And you can't turn it around. He'd be able to read the numbers. It's a Cocker Spaniel, you idiot.
They're clever dogs. Cocker Spaniels are clever dogs.
But his name is Jarvis Cocker Spaniel, so you know what? He's star quality.
Well, thank you, Jarvis. We'll see if your prediction comes true on Saturday. But just to round up, gents, I'll just come to each of you, and before I do, I'll reveal mine. So I said 0-0 on yours because I wasn't allowed to say 1-1. So my actual score is 1-1. I think that both of us will score an own goal or something because I just can't see where the goals are coming from either side. So it's going to be a goal fest, I'm sure, on Saturday. So I'm going to say 1-1 to get mine out of the way. Pete, what are you saying?
Oh, I'm the normally on ours. Yeah. I don't have to make one.
I know you're normal. That's why I went to you first.
Yes, I like this. I like this thing.
I'm going to go for my favourite score of all scores, which is a Desmond 2-2. I think that's what I'm going to go for. I think it. Nice. I appreciate you don't know where the goals are going to come from. You haven't seen our defensive capability between him and our goalkeeper. Our most reliable centre back is injured in Wes Hoot. Who, as a centre-back, has an astonishing-looking wife. But other than that, between him and the keeper, who knows? 2-2, that's what I'm going.
2-2, okay. Carlos, I'll come to you because I'm sure Justin always goes first, right? Carlos,
that's right? Yeah, we allow him that. So thank you for that. I'm actually going to take your score from our one. I'm going to go 0-0. I don't see any goals. Too tight. So I'll have a 0-0, and I'd take that. I would take that as well as I sit here.
Okay, 3 draws then. So Justin, take us home, mate.
No need. You're going to win 1-0.
I knew it.
If it was like an Olympic sport, isn't it? Try and be more grumpy about your own team, and I think we're taking goals.
What have we got to look forward to at this stage? It's just doom and gloom, mate. It really is.
This is a Millwall podcast. Stop
Okay.
emoting.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Save that for us.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, look, I'd take a 1-0 win now. I think. Although what I would say is, if we do manage to beat you 1-0 on Saturday, by the sounds of it, would give us a fake realisation of where we're actually going to be, because it doesn't sound like we're beating a side that's going to be near the top. So who knows? But gents, are you going? You going on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm down at the Den, so looking forward to that.
Nice.
And Justin and I will be running we do a phone in on Twitter Spaces thereafter. So we'll be doing the Samaritans bit. But yeah, you're right about full scores. We were 4-0 up against QPR at the start of last season. That didn't last.
We beat Middlesbrough away last season, so I don't know how we managed that, but there we go. Right, gents, we will close out there. Thank you all so much for joining me this evening. Really appreciate it. It was great as always, and wish you all the best for the rest of the season. I'm sure we will speak soon. And for those listening, please do. We'll put it in the link. Check out these guys' podcast. Do not scratch your eyes. We will put the link in because it'd be interesting to hear your post-match thoughts after Saturday.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Cheers, Chris.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys. Have a good season.
Thanks a lot. Bye for now.
Sports Social Podcast Network.